murals you painted on the walls of the faculty of art while you were dean of the faculty of art. Another approach for professor writing because they have just captured it in one. So, still thinking and talking about yesterday before we come to today, I'd like to ask Professor Hygienius Ozo to speak to us, about his professional, academic, intellectual experience and situate this within the Nigerian theatrical dynamics. I want to refer specifically to that book that you co-authored with Professor David, and then how we can connect it to the Oxford years, and how that also links directly with your exploits in the Nigerian film industry, first as Nigerian video film and now Nollywood. So, however you want to do that.
That's a tall journey. You see, because I was thinking in a conversation, but that's okay. What Professor Riley has done for me, I was lost in it. It's like a recreation of the world. And I was asking myself, when did you get myself? But I want to say that, yes, I go with what Ibadan for me, that's where he experienced Ibadan from childhood.
What's your surname?
I believe. For me, Ibadan started with Heinemann. The Heinemann education. And if you recall, Heinemann was not in the theater. Heinemann was into literature. And when I was growing up, my father was a soldier with the barracks. And one day, I was reading the African Writers Today. And I remember picking up one of the
When you go and collect something for baby,
only to discover that he lived down the street. He was a slave. He was a captain in his army. And he lived down the street from us. And the moment that was in the military school, he was an instructor in the military school. And to discover that it was like actually finding out that God was your neighbor. That there was actually a bright side there. I won't be able to describe the feeling I had. And so I would always, you want to say something about the barracks. Everybody gets to their school. I leave the barracks for those. And if you were a child, you had no business near any adult. If it was like now, we would have gone to meetings. But I kept my seat. But in that hour, I started seeing myself as a former, as a child of, somebody who says there's somebody different. And at that time, all the books that came out at that time were Heinemann books. So I kept saying that I would go to that place where this man had been. There was nothing clear in my mind about it.
Okay.
And so that was my first contact with the practice. That these great writers, people who made their name, they came from the writers. And so I found myself in Ibadan. And by the time I came into Ibadan, I read English, by the way, that's my first degree. Because I couldn't go to the US at that time to teach film. So I came into English, and I was going to pull out in my second year to go and read film. But I was decided to finish, then go to theater. And from theater, I was worried I could go into film. And I remember from Saturday, God rest his peace, who was head of theater. And he called Harry Garuba and I, we were both from English. I said, if I would come to theater after finishing, he would get me a scholarship to go to the US to study film. I didn't know. I promised Harry a teaching position in the department. And that's how I found myself in theater. All those names that Prof mentioned, they were all around here. And you see, what happened at that time was the talent in Ibadan were not talent for Tulop. You had dancers, if I can remember some of them working together, and then you had performers. So the theater here was the center of the cultural life. There was no day you could stay out and not go to the theater. It would be like a day lost. And then added to that was the kind of fervent intellectualism we found in Ibadan. And I think this came from both the arts, but also from the social sciences. We had Onoge, Professor Onoge, who was in the social sciences, but who was teaching courses in the sociology of literature. And that drew a lot of us to the social sciences also. And then you had Odia Ofemon, who was then doing his master's, writing a PhD or doing his master's. So you see, the ideas, you see, at that time in Ibadan, if you are walking on the corridor, ideas will be taking you around. You know? You have people who were Marxists, people who are socialists, and then those who were mainstream.
See this man.
And everybody was trying to pull you to their direction. I remember going to Professor Chiro's office one day, and he told me that here is a book. He said that, not Heinemann now, that my villa had just sent in a manuscript, only of a month, the poet life. I think that must have been. And asked if I could write an essay on it, which I did, and that was lesson. Professor Zibaye here, Professor Zibaye belonged to the ancient rules. You know, we had guys on the left, we had those on the right. So Zibaye here was very much on the right. You know, I recall very well doing that essay that Professor Jure asked me to do. I had mixed with Professor Sobiso, I had mixed with Onogi, I had mixed with the guy who was in Islamic studies, Colonel Omotoso. So you see, it's like a pool. And then I had gone this other ways, like more this other way. And I remember submitting my essay to Professor Zibaye. And he read it. I started laughing. And then he said, okay, young man, I would have given you an A. Maybe I'll still give you an A. But go and remove all that rubbish about management. And then I said, yes. And as I was leaving, they called me back. He said, those your friends, those your tutors, those your mentors, of course you know those he was talking about. Also we saw BJ and the rest. He said, I know where you are. And he said, did you know? He asked me, I didn't know. Did you know that Marx, when Marx was dying on his deathbed, he denied that he was a Marxist? I said, no, I didn't know. He said, well, go and tell your tutors. So what I'm trying to say is that was the kind of Ibadan we had. The ideas were everywhere, and you negotiated. The ideas were everywhere, and you negotiated your own way through those ideas. Then get me into theaters. In theaters now, those ideas were more like performance ideas. I agree that some of those times they produced things you couldn't relate to, or they produced things that took you away from reality seriously. I wish I could mention some of them. But the performance was already a stronghold at that time. And I gained tremendously from all that kind of thing. So going into film was almost, it was just like next door into film. Because I had been adequately. But then again, it meant that, learning is, you learn and unlearn as you go on. It meant I also had to unlearn a lot of things I was taught. A lot of them. I'll give you an example. I don't know if you've seen Culture in Transition. Culture in Transition is a film produced by the ESO World Fair. I think it's available in the History of African Studies. Shoyinka directed or was co-producer to it. in that film, it's a collage really. A lot of things into it. You have something on architecture, something on dance, something on literature, something on culture proper. I remember one sequence of that film, The Outward Dancer. I know some of you have read The Outward Dancer. So I remember the sequence of The Outward Dancer, where this guy, the guy who founded the nation, I can't remember his name again, and he is sitting down and he's reading The Outward Dancer. And while he's reading that poem on The Outward Dancer, there was an actual performance by an outward dancer. Please imagine the impossibility of it. He's reading the poem about a dancer, and that dancer is actually dancing. So I fell in love with that. But it was like falling in love with the wrong thing. Because it's like watching a football match where there is a commentator, that you are watching a football match on radio and on television at the same time. They don't go together. So what I'm trying to say is that I had to learn, seriously unlearn, and when you are passionately imbibe certain things, it takes you a much longer time to let it go. So by the time I was in film, I was in the US radio. It took a lot to drop that idea. Because in film, what you have is not a description of the action. What you have is the action. You know? So I couldn't quite let go. You see, but that was part of the thing I called the Ibadan. Another thing was this whole, I think they called it, at that time, they called it the common room tradition. The fact that somebody could present a paper, you look him in the face and say your paper is rubbish. But you are talking to the paper, not to the guy. And after that, you go and have a drink. So one time, I remember when Ogunpa wrote his book, The Movement of Transition, and that was launched at the Art Theatre. Ogunpa was there with his wife. Femi Osonison, BJ, Kola Omotosho. I don't know how they got those three guys together to talk about the book. They destroyed the book. And there was Professor Ogunpa sitting there with his wife. Yes, I couldn't understand how they tore the book apart. And Professor Ogunpa now later, when he had to respond, went over to the person and said, I thank you guys for putting my lecture notes back at me. You know, but the point I'm trying to make is that it had also taught me that when you take up a finished work and you are looking at it, you don't care about anything, you're actually looking at that finished work. And when I started drawing out syllabus for film, both for the diploma and the degree, I had to include courses, and I call them post-mortem courses, where the students will now conduct a post-mortem of the work somebody has done. And you know what Sri Kansi said about a post-mortem? Is the dead teaching the living how not to die. And so bringing my students to do a post-mortem would be to say, look, this group of students, your classmates, this is the film they have made. Now let's throw it open for post-mortem. The knives will be out. You no longer talk about what is good about the film, but how the film could have been, how the film could have been better. And I put that in every syllabus I had to draw, even the one with the NUC. That you will have this. I'm trying to say these are the things I gathered from Ibadan. You know? Because in Ibadan I saw it done so much so that there was no enmity in criticism. You could say it's the work. Talk about the work. But the person who did the work is an A1 fellow. But the work may not be A1.
Thank you, Prof. So I'm going to ask our award winner, Olubomi Kamiluni, to speak about his sources, inspiration, influences, your vision, and how you think that would affect contemporary and future audience. I know that's a lot, but
Thank you. And also, of course, thank you to the organizers for the invitation. I think almost every elder here, like when you're in the midst of elders, you can't begin to go over the history, whether it's the political history or the intellectual history, creative, whatever type of history, of the community that you're in, because they're the custodians of that history. They're like the grails that pass on the oral tradition of that particular community that you are. And of course, professors Mizebai, Bekwazi, and also Professor Miraji, they've all done that today, so can't keep going on about that. So I like the question that Professor Agoro has asked me. It has nothing to do with history of where we are, but they've done a good job on that. So it's almost kind of like now looking at your personal history, the context of that particular community, because that's how you can also interpret that question as well, and also in the context of the work that you have done, because it's now talking about sources and inspiration, and we know that with creative work, with intellectual work, there's always that those environmental sources and also inspiration as well. And of course, we're looking at Ibadan in this case, and like I said, it's also connected to personal history. So like a bit of that, for me, just like Professor Kwasi said, for me, I didn't grow up in Ibadan. So I'm trying to give you guys a background of to the answer for the answer to that question. I didn't grow up in Ibadan. I was born in Ibadan, but the thing about being born in Ibadan, I think for me was that in Nigeria they look at your roots or your source. Since we're also talking about sources, as where your father is from. When they ask you a state of origin, most of the time, of course, not most of the time, all of the time, they're talking about where your father is. But nobody ever considers your natal roots as well. In some cases, you might not have been born. Those are your natal roots. You might not have been born where your father is from. So for me, my natal roots are in Ibadan. I was born in Ibadan. So I think there was always that pullback. So I grew up in Lagos. But when it was time to become serious as a creative, I think it was those natal roots that I had in Ibadan that eventually drew me back to Ibadan. Because I just found, I could have gone anywhere else. I just found that, I returned here. And also, when you think about it, also in the context of all the histories that have been talked about here, all the greats that have come out from Ibadan. We're talking about the literary greats that have come out of Ibadan. So I think there was that pull. It also almost have been spiritual as well. It was just like a call, had to come back here. So it was when I got back here that I began to get all the inspiration. That was when I became serious with my craft at all. Of course, I've been reading a lot all the while going through school and growing up and all of that. But there was never in that period that had begun my creative journey. I hadn't started writing or anything. So I think even with all the reading and all, I think it was just preparing me, for that. But about the environment, that physical environment in this case, I think I had to come back here to feel it. So that's why I said there's also a bit of spirituality about it as well. So I came back here and it was almost as if, the creative juices just began to flow. It was where I began to write. I began to get all those inspirations. Now, for me, if you look at most of my work, I think most of the inspiration is usually from the working class, from the lower classes, as well. Because now, I think in my work, I think I'm very class conscious as well. Because I think about it, you look at these stories of the people from these lower classes, whether it's lower middle class, whether it's the actual lower classes. It's not as if the stories are not being told, but I think the stories are usually being told in just certain directions, and the focus usually is on those economic conditions, maybe the poverty that they are going through. But the thing about it is that these guys also enjoy other things as well. Nobody's talking about the kind of music that they enjoy as well. So when you look at my work, so I think largely, if we're talking about inspiration, I think music was a huge inspiration for me. So I'm thinking about the kind of music that they're listening to, the kind of music that is the soundtrack to their daily life. I'm thinking about their fashion as well. So people are talking about how they are suffering. The focus is usually on their suffering, is on their economic condition, it's about how they are trying to better those economic conditions. But then we're not looking at all the other, little intricacies of what they are, like I said, their sartorial lives, their, the kind of music that also gets them through the day. The also kind of literature that they're into as well. Because most of the time we just dismiss those lower classes as almost, unlettered or uneducated, I'm not talking about formal education in this case. Of course, there are lots of them that are also literate in their own, on their own terms as well. So you think about the kind of literature they are also involved in. So looking at this holistically, I think these are some of the things when you look at my work that actually inspired me, over the years, and also the sources. I don't want to call them the streets, in basic terms, they just call them the streets, people that come from the streets. But yeah, that's also what it is as well. So I'll say the streets and also the lives, the intricacies of the lives that the people from the lower classes go through. And since it's in Ibadan, of course, there's a lot of that, in Ibadan as well.
So I want you to speak to contemporary audience.
Okay.
And what you think is likely going to be happening.
In what sense?
Just in terms of how people now see writing, the younger generation.
Okay. Yeah, I think since we're also talking about history, and just as I think the title or the topic of what we're talking about has to do with yesterday, today, and also the future as well. Everybody here that is a contemporary writer, I think you have something to learn from all the histories that you've heard today. There are certain names that you have heard, but you might not have heard them in certain situations. And I think the responsibility that you have now is that if you have never heard about Shoyinka and Achebe and Olibaya and these people in the context of the Mbari Club, you just knew that, they went to University of Ibadan, they taught at Ife, they were this. But if you never heard about them in the context of the Mbari Club, I think it's your responsibility now that you've been introduced to that to actually go back and find things about that, read about that. Now, what all of that does is that you are learning from the past as you are going forward, and that's very important for you as a writer. These people, they became great writers, while they were young, as they were growing up, and of course, you are in that phase now where you probably have just started your creative journey. But I think it's very important that you are learning from the things that have happened in the past, and you are lucky to be in Ibadan. I always say, it's not as if the writers in Lagos or anywhere else. You are lucky to be in the creative capital. They don't just call it the creative capital for nothing. You've heard everything that all the professors have said. This is actually the creative capital. And interestingly, it's not even just the creative capital for literature as well. When you look at music as well, right now everybody is focused on Lagos because of the economics of it. That's why everybody is going to Lagos. But the core of, especially when we're talking about folk music, traditional music, a lot of them, the core of the sources, the core of the inspirations actually from Ibadan. Yeah, there are a lot of things that you can learn from that. Very, very famously, Fuji. Everybody knows that. The origin is from Lagos, but when you look at the core, most of what has happened in that ecosystem, most of it has happened in Ibadan. So I think going forward as a creative, there's a lot that you have to learn from the past. And like I said, it's your responsibility to actually go into the past and learn all what you have to learn.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we'll take a few questions from the audience.
Another set,
I think it's important to tweak what Bumi just said. Some people will be very angry with you to say that the origin of Fuji is Lagos. The origin of Fuji is Ibadan. And actually that was what got me lost. I was following a Fuji musician to Makuo in 1970. And I followed them when they finished. The man won it. It's a secret in the barista actually. And that was the very first time he was going to win a trophy at Makuo. And as they were going their different places, there was no electricity then in Ibadan. They used to use a gas lamp. So I followed them and everybody was going their different forums. And I found myself lost. So again, it's very connected. And all of the major Fuji musicians, including Soniti Ade Shokon, Omon at home called Fuji, all of them, they are from Ibadan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Let me just clarify something in response to when I say the origin of Fuji, I'm talking about where exactly came from. That's Were and the Ajiwere. The Ajiwere was actually in Lagos Island. So yeah, Fuji itself. Yeah, Fuji itself. No, yeah, but there was Ajiwere also in Lagos Island. Yeah. No, but there was Ajiwere also in Lagos as well. Yeah, and Abeokuta as well. Yeah, Ajiwere, Ajisari. Well, for what I know. And the major guys that were playing at the time, all them Ghanaian European, they were actually from Lagos Island. Yeah, so that when I say the source of it, of course I know that Barrister was Ibadan, he's the originator of Fuji. So yes, of course, in another life. So sorry,
Okay, can we just take a few questions? Okay. 1, 2. And Prof, as you round up, I would like to just ask you to talk about
Okay, good afternoon. My question is about the environment. Sorry, good afternoon again. Thank you for the panel. My question is about the environment that Prof actually spoken about. And it's something that interests me because I like how it was like a collective of creatives. So writers were not alone, we were with dancers, we were with painters. I don't think we have that anymore, not just in Ibadan, but actually in Nigeria. I think everybody's just working, doing their own work individually. How do we bring that back, that spirit of collectiveness, like writers, painters, coming together to actually do stuff together, and also not just for the literary art, but also for the advancement of Nigeria? Because Mbari was not just about that, it was also about moving Nigeria forward. How do we bring back the spirit in Ibadan, in Nigeria, in the literary and art space?
I want to take the other question.
Good afternoon, everyone. So in the first panel, I raised up my hand, but unfortunately, I wasn't called. I'm a young author. Okay, I published a book on July, and my question is, how can I get my book across, and what makes a book award-worthy?
Award-worthy. Okay.
Can you respond to that question? The question of the Mbari.
Wireless.
Well, I already said it in passing that revolutions don't get mandates where there are no people to force the change. It very happened because there were actors who are ready to collaborate. You know, from Osogbo, Ilobu, Ibadan, Lagos, all of them came together. It will take some time for us to have, and I made a reference to new barriers. The new barrier that we are going to have will not be limited to this kind of physical presence that we have. There are new platforms, there are digital platforms now where we can actually recreate what we refer to as new barriers. But there are works being done. There are platforms, I don't know whether you know about Quora in Lagos, Terra Culture, and all of these places. And what we are doing here is very emblematic of the kind of barrier that can come. The future belongs to you.
Thank you. Okay, Professor. The question I was trying to ask was on the transcription that you did of the conference that was held that brought the town and town together. That Shrinka was there, Hubert Bunde was there, Juladiko was there, and then the collaboration with the Theatre Arts Department. Just to be a word on that.
I really don't have much to say about that, but you see, theatre arts and Institute of African Studies, they, not so much that they were collaborating, but they did a lot of work that I would find, like they were adding value to each other while they were doing their own different things. You see, in the days of the Ford Foundation, some grants came to theatre arts. And those grants were well utilized. It was like bringing the town, bringing the people's performance to the university space. And what happened immediately was that actually those who came, those who got from it, were actually those in the university space. But I think what happened was that they academized what they got from it, whereas those who came from the villages or from the town actually got a way to become more mercantile. I'm talking of Osunde, more versatile. I'm talking of in what they got from that kind of intellectual that happened. And of course, the Institute of African Studies was there, doing the same thing but in a different way.
Okay, thank you very much, and then we can still think of what to do with that kind of arena. Any more from you, Bumi?
One question.
No question, just a comment in response to about yes, award-winning guest. The lady that talked about.
But was it about awards
that she had published a book and she would like to win and market it and then win an award?
Well, like I always say, when you are writing, you are not writing to win an award. So just focus on the writing and don't think about the award. That's how it works. they're great writers that didn't win any awards. So it's not the awards that you win that will validate whether you're a good writer, but just focus on the craft and just write. So I don't leave the award beat. But there are some writers that write and don't enter into any awards, but they are respected, writers in their field. So like I said, just focus on the craft or bettering the craft. You'll be fine as a writer.
Thank you very much. I'd like us to give an applause to each and every member of this panel, and that would be it for this panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for our guests, our panelists, and our moderator, Professor Doyin Agboro. Thank you very much for that wonderful session. Please, a round of applause. Let's not stop clapping. Let's not stop clapping for them. So, things are getting sweeter. While we're having the session, a very special, like I said, everyone is special, but we had another special guest join us while the panel session was on. So please, with a round of applause, let's celebrate Emeritus Professor Femi Oshofisan. He's seated right here. Please, let's celebrate him. Let's celebrate him for his presence, and we appreciate you for coming. Now we have to move on to the next panel session, and this one, I'm really excited because of the people that are going to be talking. And the next panel session is titled "The City as Muse: How Ibadan and Other Urban Spaces Inspire Artistic Expression." And to moderate this session, please, with a round of applause, let's welcome Joba Ojelabi. And so Joba Ojelabi is a marketing and communications professional with a passion for storytelling. His work is rooted in a fascination with the power of narratives to connect people, drive change, and create meaning. Beyond his professional pursuit, Joba is invested in the arts, contributing as the communications lead at Agbowo, an African literary organization dedicated to amplifying creative voices across the continent. Based in Lagos, Nigeria, Joba leverages its diverse experiences to bridge the worlds of science, marketing, and the arts. So please, let's celebrate Joba Ojelabi once again. And to introduce the first panelist, please, let's celebrate here with us. This is someone who has stood for this is someone who represents and shows us what Ibadan needs to look like, and continue to do that with his media and with everything he has. Please, let's celebrate the one and only Ayo Adams. Please, let's celebrate him coming up to the Ayo Adams is a distinguished Nigerian documentary filmmaker, photographer, and multimedia storyteller based in Ibadan, Oyo State. Through his lens and narrative craft, he explores stories of identity, culture, and social impact, giving voice to everyday Nigerians whose experiences shape the fabric of the nation. He is the founder and creative lead at Ayo Adams Media, where he produces socially conscious documentaries, visual essays, and digital storytelling projects that highlight resilience and human dignity. His works have been featured on various Nigerian media platforms, including the Times of Abuja and Niger Theatre, where his storytelling continues to inspire empathy and civic engagement. Among his notable projects are a documentary feature on Raimi Kobomoje, a 90-year-old Ibadan cap maker who left the cocoa trade to preserve indigenous craft, and the viral video story that prompted Fuji icon Saheed Osupa to visit a devoted fan and onion seller in Oje Market, Ibadan. In addition to his documentary work, Ayo Adams is also active in stage and cultural production. He produced Yalo de Ibadan, a stage play presented in June 2025, which celebrated Ibadan's heritage through music, theatre, and oral history. Ayo's creative philosophy is anchored on the belief and storytelling that storytelling is a tool for transformation, a bridge between communities, a mirror for society, and a catalyst for change. Through film, photography, and immersive narratives, he continues to document life in Ibadan and beyond, amplifying stories that might otherwise go untold. Please, once again, a round of applause for Ayo Adams. And also, introducing the next panel. Introducing the next panelist, we had we had this woman give a very wise, insightful thoughts into the conversation. Please, let's celebrate as I make welcome Indidi Chiazo Enyamo. Please, let's celebrate as she comes up. And so, Indidi Chiazo Enyamo is an award-winning author of several books. She writes for both adults and children. A novel, If They Tell the Story, won the Anna Prose Prize 2022. Our teen fiction, The Hero's Welcome, was nominated for the Nigerian Prize for Literature 2019. Our children's book, One Little Mosquito, won the Anna Prize for Children's Literature 2009. Being a strong advocate for education beyond the classroom, Indidi has engaged in several activities to stimulate outdoor learning. She has collaborated with several agencies to bring African stories on stage. Under the auspices of Project Read Aloud and Tell, Pratt, a brainchild, and in partnership with the Goethe Institute and Alliance Francaise, several series of the program have been held over the years. Pratt is designed to promote creative instincts in school children through stage performance. Indidi holds a Master of Arts degree in English literature from the University of Lagos. Also, our book, A Father's Pride, made the shortlist of 3 of the Nigerian Prize for Literature 24. Siboroko Sispe is also on the 2025 shortlist of Chinua Achebe Prize for Literature. Please, let's celebrate her again. And so, introducing. And so, introducing the last panelist on the session, please let's celebrate and give a round of applause as we make welcome Silva Inze Ifedigo, right up on stage, right here. Silva Inze Ifedigo writes fiction, creative non-fiction, and socio-political commentaries. He has published a novel, My Mind Is No Longer Here, a collection of stories, The Funeral Did Not End, that was 2012, and a novella, Whispering Aloud in 2007. His short stories have appeared in various publications, including Prick of the Spindle, African Writer, Maple Tree Literary Supplement, Saraba, Kalahari Review, True Africa, Afrida, and Trice Fiction Magazine. Silva believes the calling of a writer is to study humans explicitly and document this in simple, memorable stories. He lives in Lagos, Nigeria. Please, once again, make welcome Silva. Into Silva.
All right. Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for these beautiful people. It's nice to be doing this. Hello. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Ibadan Book and Arts Festival, for having us, as it were. The theme of the panel, which he introduced first, but did not mention the theme of the panel. The theme of the panel is building up, of course, on the last panel, the city as muse, how Ibadan and other modern cities inspire creativity. And I like the fact that a lot of background work really has been done, especially from the academic perspective. But it's also important to acknowledge everything, because this is not the first leg of the conversation. I think it started yesterday in the virtual sessions. And as a matter of fact, there is Prof's work, Professor Fison's work, that has the same title, City as Muse, exploring Ibadan as beyond just the creative of having agency of itself and actually playing a character in art. So of course, I want to start with the lady, Indidi, if you don't mind. You're in your work, because I mean, you've done some good work around children's literature and even fiction, as it were. Cities, and it doesn't have to be Ibadan, do cities play a role beyond just being the setting of your characters?
Yeah, they do. To a large extent, a lot of my books have been inspired by my life in several cities. I grew up in Aba, Abia State, and my last book for children, A Father's Pride, was partly inspired by what happened when I was living in a particular place called Market Road, 128 Market Road. We had a neighbor who had a house help, and she was maltreating the house help, you know. I was young then, but, you know, growing up, I was now wondering why the adults around us those days didn't do anything, you know. So, and funny enough, the class name was, or is Ndizi, yeah. growing up, this woman will shout, "Did you come and do this?" You know, always flogging her for any little thing. So, you know, but I know back in the village, that kind of a thing cannot happen without maybe the old mother stepping in to say something or do something. They cannot just ignore that woman doing that to that child. But you know, in cities, people seem to just be to themselves and all of that. So it inspired that story, Father's Cry. And so many other books I've written. See Morocco, see Spain was inspired by life in Benin, because an average person living in Benin, growing up in Benin, when you ask them what is your future career, they will tell you, I want to travel. So traveling is like a future career for an average Benin person. And you know, I have a lot of friends from Benin. My husband grew up in Benin and all of that. In fact, he's the one that told me this story, that an average person in Benin, when you ask them what do you want to do in the future, they will tell you, I want to travel. So I also have friends from Benin City and all of that. So it motivated that story. See Morocco, sister. Apart from my cousin, who, you know, we don't know his whereabouts. He undertook that journey 26 years ago through Sahara Desert, and since then we do not see him. So apart from him being an inspiration for that story, life in Benin is also an inspiration for that story. Yeah.
Lovely. So I'm just going to build on that, and Silva, the question is for you. It's the same question but slightly tweaked. There's this Shoyinka interview that I really like, where he tries to expand the Yoruba Iwalewa concept as character, things having character. And I mean, from what Ndidi has described now, can we say that these everyday lives of people in these cities can be the character of these cities? And how does that inspire your work?
Please.
All right, thank you very much. You know, the places are so important to stories. In fact, the place where something happens can be as important as what happens there. I agree that cities, or in fact any place really, can not just be the setting of a story, but can also be the character in that story. And this you'll find, I mean, in my work, like you've said, that cities where I found myself have inspired, you know, the kind of writing that I've done. Largely, some will say it's fictionalizing social commentary, but then this is still based on the lives of people within those cities. And living in those circumstances, you are encountering people who, like she said, you know, there are actions that are enabled because of where those people are situated. And so those now form stories that, you know, that can inspire the writer, you know, to write. But then cities can also be an inspiration for so many other things, right? It could be something as simple as, I mean, we listened to Remiraj just now talk about the Mbari Collective, the Mbari Club and all. The opportunity to be with like-minded, you know, provide inspiration. The opportunity and avenue that can serve as watering holes, you know, provide inspiration. The life, you know, of a people, whether it is partying, nightlife, educational institutions like you have in Ibadan provide, you know, also an inspiration, and this comes from the city and the nature, the reading, you know, the vibe, like young people will say, of that city, and that strongly influences my work as well.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much, Silva. So I'm going to bring you back to Ayo Adams. And I left you for last for an interesting reason, because the other two on the panel are, when we call interested, they're writers. But your work is not typical writing. Despite the fact that it's rooted in the arts, your channel is much more modern, if I could call it that. But what really inspires your work? Because at the end of the day, we see impact. We see that you spotlight this city, Ibadan, and the people in it. But was that the intention when you started out?
So, I would like to start by saying that when people ask me that what inspires the work that we do, because now, these days, it's not even about just me anymore. You know, we have like a group of people. So when you say it's almost as if we have like 3 or 4 persons behind it. What actually inspires the work is community.
Ever since we started it,
We cannot put the stories together without people. And that is why we remain grateful for the fact that we exist in this city. This city is our news. For when he was reading, when I was reading my Bible the other time, he was talking about one onion seller that one of our stories, worked for, went viral, and the popular Fijian musician came to Ibadan because of her. If we do not have these people in this city, there is no way we are going to make that kind of story happen. So every day that we wake up, every day that I wake up and I speak to my team, I tell them, what do you guys think about the blacksmith guys at there? I think there's a story there. Let's go there and talk to them. I think while I was sitting there with one of my friends, we were just putting something together, saying, I have interest in the history of fabric, and I think I'm looking forward to talking to the women of Baggy and the men of Dubai and the likes. So the kind of stories, the kind of interviews that I do, they are largely inspired by people and the city, and it has always been the motive from day one. Because even when I started because I wanted to bust it. I came online one time and then I saw this story of Adiboro, which was because the story behind that one was actually fable. It was actually fable. They were saying until she be Adiboro, if you cannot also like a potter, Igbo, you cannot, enjoy like Adiboro at Ojaba. And in reality, nothing of such happened to any Adiboro. No Adiboro lives at Ojaba. But I constantly try to, correct this fable. And I see that people are not going to change. And one day, I just went in search of Professor Emeradi because that is his family compound. He's from Adiboro compound. And I just sat him down. Please tell us the story of your compound. Is there a potter in your family? Oh, no potter. Okay, no potter. Let us publish this so that we can judge this case.
But let me interrupt you there, and I'm going to ask Ndidi to answer that question, right? And my course is fine. Because, therein comes creative license and the need for writers like Ndidi and Silva to create fiction from the inspiration they've gotten from these real scenarios. And I would not be surprised if it was somebody's fiction that became that has been passed down from generation to generation, because it's such a profound use in everyday expression, and in fact use it to encourage hard work. So you use it because there's virtue you are trying to teach, and parents just adopt it. So where then do we join? Because I see you fighting misrepresentation, if I could call it that, or maybe some form of appropriation. But there's also creative license for the writer, for the creator, for the storyteller, the filmmaker, the musician to create. So why do we try? So only I'll let you answer first, but I'll also come back to hear your thoughts on that, Ayo.
Okay, when you was talking, I just remember a particular song about Molue, Lagos City Transport. I can't remember the artist. The song goes like this: Molue, Lagos City Transport. So it cuts across writers, musicians, like you rightly said. There's a recent music about Canada. Canada, So I was listening to the lyrics, and the person was trying to say that even though we are colonized by Britain and all of that, but it's Canada that has given Nigeria more opportunities and all of that. So you see creatives, it cuts across writers and all of that, And we are talking in the earlier session, we are talking about people, young adults, going with their gadgets everywhere they go. And this is affecting the reading culture. Each time I travel to Toronto, I'm a frequent traveler to Toronto, and when I'm on the train, I see everybody, 90% of people in the train, they are holding books and they are reading. They are reading, both the adults and the young ones. it amazes me that why can't we in Nigeria, these people that manufacture these gadgets and they are not being consumed by it, why should we not swallow everything? The reading culture in Canada is so high that at bus stops, even the aged, you see them reading and all of that. And that gives me an inspiration for another work, another book I'm going to write. I'm going to talk about all of these things, how the culture of a place, the city plays a role in writing, in giving inspiration to a writer. Yes, yeah.
Okay, so Silva, do you have thoughts if I come back? Because I really want to hear that. Where do we draw that line? Is it creative license to use the city and not become an Adigboro story, if you could call it that?
The truth is that you won't find that line, right? It's a very fluid relationship. On the one hand, you have work that is more journalistic, if you like, but with an art angle to it, right? On the other hand, you have arts, be it literature or poetry or drama and all, where we are free to express ourselves. And in fact, even the analogy is imagine where you now begin to go into fantasy fiction and science fiction and all of that, magical realism and all. So that takes it even to another level, because you are seeing in Lagos where dampers are flying. So how much of Adams' work will correct that? Oh no, wait a minute, dampers don't fly. So this is not. So, but really, writers will continue to make use, exploit that creative license to tell beautiful stories. And if that analogy has come from a piece of writing, it's so good because, like you said, it's something being used to advise young people to work hard and all. On the other hand, there will be creatives like Adams who want to set the fact straight that, hey, while this is a very fantastic analogy to use, it's a fable, right? And let's just get that fact straight. But then that really forms that collective community of creatives, right? I think it was Professor Kwazu that was just saying here that you have people who sit down and tear other people's works. And that's really that intellectual exchange, that from whatever angle you're coming through with the best of your own work, right? And it's left for the other people on the other side to critique it, to fact check it, to lay it straight, whatever they have to do. But that is the beauty of keeping that community going.
Thank you very much. I think that no matter what you say, I have really this job to force any. So please react.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, you see, most of the work that I do, they are historically based, and the goal is to ensure that we do not misrepresent Ibadan. In fact, it's not like anybody's paying me to defend Ibadan, but it is like my number one duty to ensure that wherever Ibadan comes up, it is properly represented. And while we have stories that I would consider a story like that one as a didactic work, but we also have stories that they pick other names. They use other names in the stories that are probably not true. Some writers even go as far as putting like a disclaimer that this is the work of fiction. But when you have people going too far with family stories, you have to call them back and say, please, so this one is not this one is not the way you are putting it. You just have to set the facts straight. And it is not because of that moment. It is because of some of the kind of conversations that we now have to deal with on social media these days. Okay, because these days we have a lot of tribal tribal wars that is going on social media. People say they want to rewrite the history of Lagos, they want to rewrite the history of Ibadan, and all of that. I mean, we can actually correct ourselves with love, with proper conversation, and we can praise the artists for doing what the artists have done, and also tell them that, see, this part is entirely different. I respect the artist for what the artist has done, but when there is need to also set the path straight. We are going to do that. We are going to disagree. We are going to agree. Thank you.
True that. Well, I like that we've come to an amicable agreement. So, but I've also been informed that Silva and Ndidi might have to catch a train. So we would just run through your sessions. I know the audience might have questions. So if you have questions for Silva and Ndidi, please prep it. While I just ask one final question, and it is around channel. Really, yes. I know that you write a lot of children literature, and whether yes, creative license and all that, but I think I also agree with Ayo Adams. We're at a point in history where the world is paying attention. So even beyond us reading and our future generations, the world is curious about us and this. So you want to read about Benin? What books can I pick about the city, even if it's fictional? Do you think that you and other writers have a responsibility to actually make some factual documentation even in your creative work? And forgive me because I've seen a lot of appropriation, and just as you said, these days there's also the question of agency. Who can write about what city? I mean, do you have to be from there to write about there? So I just wanted to address those questions.
I don't think you have to be from any city to write about that city. That's where research also comes in. Even if you have not experienced life in that city, you can decide to do some research. In Morocco, Spain, you see me talking about Agadez. I've never been there, but I understand that it's in Agadez that the journey to Europe actually starts through the Sahara Desert. From Agadez they now, start crossing the Sahara to Libya and all of that. I've never lived in Agadez, but if you see the description, you would think I even grew up there, So that's where the research comes in. You have to ask questions, interview people, do a lot of research. So I don't think anybody should be limited to the place you know or the place you've grown up. For being a creative, you should have the right to talk about, and there shouldn't be censorship. There shouldn't be any form of censorship.
Right. Silver Chapels.
Well, I like to. I think the question really is where are you really from? It's a big question, right? I'm from Anambra State. My parents are from Anambra State. I wasn't born in Anambra State, so it's where I am born, where I'm from, because he But what you might now want to just say is that you need to have fidelity to Kanu in your writing. That's what she says in the research. And everything the people from Kano should now come through in your writing. But then you really can't stop creative expressions. You have Nigerians writing about everywhere in the world, and it's good story.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I don't know if we have questions in the house for Ndudi and Silva. I still have Ayo for a little bit longer, so we'll come back. But we'll just take that so we don't rock the audience. Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Akoli. I want to ask Ndidi a particular question about creating fictional characters. Whenever you write and you create fictional characters, names personnel that you've created through imagination. Do you ever see pictures of yourself in those characters? How do you manage to escape yourself from those characters?
Sometimes you can't just help it, see yourself or write about yourself in some character. But it's not in all cases. Like a particular book that has maybe 20 characters. There is no way you can replicate yourself in the 20 characters. But if you ask me in a particular book, you know, you see me in one of the characters. I don't have to tell you that I know that you can see me in one of the characters. You can't see me in all the characters. You can see somebody else, maybe a friend, a relative, somebody, you know, me recreating somebody that I know in all the characters. But you can see me, you know, silently in one of the characters. Yeah. Okay.
I believe you just affirmed that we can see authors in their characters.
Sure, yeah.
Should we judge them based on that?
That's a tricky one.
That's if you're able to, like I told you, if you read my latest novel, See Morocco, See Spain, you know, you can see me in one of the characters, but you may not know. If you're not close to me, you won't know. But it's only those that who have related with me, who are close to me, that can say, this is Ndidi. Like I said, there might be 20 characters there, but you won't really know. You know, but somehow the author, you know, consciously or unconsciously projects, they project themselves, they project their values, they project their beliefs and everything through their books. It might just be an unconscious thing, but at the end of the day, you see that the author is actually pushing a narrative through their work. Yes.
Good.
Right.
Right.
You shouldn't judge the author. We are all human beings.
Please don't judge. We read, we don't judge. All right. Please ask your question. Good afternoon.
When you were saying about the community, let's say in a village now, where if someone died and people know, all people will gather and investigate, but in the town, why do people mind their own?
Okay, so the nature of urban cities that is very I think Silver. Yes. So it's the I mean, why are urban cities so, what's the word now? Yes, very individualistic. Say, if it's in a village, something happens, everybody, the community has come around, but in the city, you die alone in your flat.
Unfortunately, that's the very nature of urban cities, or urban centers. That's a very strong point that you have raised as a young man of your age, you know, thinking that deep. We unfortunately a lot more of our rural, semi-rural places are fast urbanizing, or you're having a very strong rural urban migration and all. And we are fast, what we have that was working for us as a people, which is that communality, that family, is breaking down. You know, growing up, I needed to commit, do something wrong somewhere. And before I go home, everybody has dealt with me. In fact, somebody that would drag me from my ear to my mother, right? And they will have beaten me already. But now, that wouldn't happen, right? We have these large fences, we barricade ourselves, we really don't have any, I mean, like you said, places in the UK, people die in their houses and we discover 6 months, 1 year later that this person has died. Exactly, you don't see your neighbor, people don't talk to each other, you just move on. And it is worse now where most relationships are done digitally. So you say you are friends with somebody. You people are only friends on WhatsApp, you know, from time to time, just check up on each other, and that's it. So it's unfortunately in the nature of it's like when we were talking about AI this morning, right? And I was like, isn't it instructive that this conference or this festival is holding side by side to a tech conference on the other room, and where I'm sure they will be talking very much about AI and how they progress it. It is a fact of life, right? That this is happening, and that there is continuous breakdown of the family and community with urbanization and the influence of technology in human societies as well. So what should you do? As much as possible, please hold. And parents have a big role to play in this. You know, the way you raise your kids, enforcing those family values is really important. That even the influence of these external forces can have minimal effect, not that it won't have an effect, because we also talk about migration, for example. You have families where one is in Canada, the other one is in Australia, the other one is in New Zealand, and they don't see, right? Even their father will die, nobody can come home. So it is the part of life now, but it now takes human beings to really enforce, you have to be deliberate about enforcing that communal living as much as you can within this time.
All right. Thank you. Please a round of applause. Sadly, against my will, I have to let you guys go so you don't miss your train. But it was lovely doing this with you. I'm going to wrap up the conversation with Ayo Adams while we'll let you go. Thank you. Please a round of applause for them. Thank you so much. Do we do the photos now? Yes. I still have 3 minutes.
Hey, careful, don't break this thing. What you are to work? You are listening to voice notes. How can you pay sorrow? You are listening to voice notes in the middle of work. On back on yourself. Are you charging? Yeah, go and pick it. This is it. The phone is a public phone today.
All right, thank you. All right, so Ayo, let's wrap up this conversation. Now that we've let the creatives go, let's talk documentary, let's talk film. So I'm going to refer to one of your most recent work. I think I saw it around should we call it an urban city? The Igora work.
Right, can't call it Igora.
Not urban, right?
That's not.
So exactly. So you look at that kind of work, and we see that by merely trying to describe the character of the city, right? You've created or maybe curated something. Where do you put that in this conversation? That kind of work, because I mean we're saying so much about urban cities and urban, but at the end of the day, every city has its own character that I think, you might disagree, deserve some spotlight as well. So where do you put that kind of work in this conversation? Cities as muse.
So when it comes to Igora, what we say is that Igora is now fast developing because of the World Trade Festival that is now being celebrated there. And this is not because it is just the initiative of Igora people. It is the initiative of people who are from urban environments. They thought that, Igora has the highest number of twins in the world. And now, how can we make this place special? How can we spotlight this place? Then decided the first edition of that festival. And
glory.
even, I think I am sharing this one with you for the first time. Most of the twins that come to the festival, they invite them from region to region. And now these days we have people asking us questions. So sir, how can like twins, send you message from other states? How can we attend this festival? How do we register to be part of this festival? And you see that it is characters from urban cities that go to places that other people do not know about to activate their environment for the world. If I if I do not constantly go to Igora with other characters, with other photographers that have urban that have the angle at which urban people can consume content from places like that. You never find out about places like that. And when people who are in other communities too, when they discover that, Igora is in the news, so they will have to start looking for the characters that make Igora popular. Baba mi, please, we are trying to make sure that our community festival too, at Ibo, at Okeo, at Anambra, at this and that, we want it to become a story in the news. Look at, okay, let me close with this. Look at our popular Oduyoba festival. Look at how it has gathered momentum. Of course, there are the characters at this festival, but you see that immediately technology in the hand of another character entered into the scene. It felt as if they have never done anything in that place before. And now it is something that even when I think I was in Rwanda in the weekend, and someone was telling me, you see, there is one festival in your country, that all of them they wear uniform outfit and look forward to it every year. When is it next? It's next year. So you see, it has become really popular because of the characters who do all this work.
Interesting. I like that you use the Ojidioba reference, because if you ask me, I think it's one of the biggest exports of Ijebu.
Yes.
Right? But I mean, recently, especially after the last one, or maybe the one before, maybe you may forgive my marketing orientation. There's the conversation around the commodification of culture, right? Where in trying to spotlight these things, yes, we're calling all the sponsors and they're bringing so much money and everybody is just, but the essence of it really, I get for, some cities because they're still far behind, but what do you think about getting to that point where the very essence of the culture maybe becomes compromised and it's just commodified? And please, I want the audience to start prepping their questions for Ayo.
So I think that when you celebrate cultural festivals, at the end of the day, it even how it grows beyond how you imagine it from the scratch. And now, you see brands coming in and saying, we want to become part of this and part of that. So when we are talking about the commodification of this festival, the bigger work is in the hand of the custodians of this festival. Now, when it is time to do what is cultural in this festival, we must make sure that we do not compromise. When it is time for the general public to join us to celebrate the festival, they have to join us. We can no longer get to our festivals. We have to be honest at this point. We can no longer, once your festival blow up, all of us are coming there. If your festival should blow up in the east, you will see all of us there. If it blows up in the north, we are going there. I was talking to some of the brands that I have collaborated with this week, and they said, Ayo, you have done a lot of Southwest. We need you to send us proposals for Southeast, send us northern regions. Because for me, I do not see the commodification. I feel like we've waited for this time to come, for people to recognize that we in Africa, in Nigeria, we actually have very rich culture and history. And when we celebrate it, people have to key into it one way or the other. They have to also make money from it. In as much as you see, in as much as the ritual aspect feeling, it does not take anybody's life and it does not disrespect anyone. They should hold on to the and
again, if you have questions, we'll be taking them shortly. But my final question to you, especially around this topic, city, like urban cities as news, and of course the Ibadan, in context of this conversation. One thing I see that you do a lot with your videos is you try to keep things in their original form as much as possible. So yes, maybe the videos are crisp and clean, but you put the people in their habitats, the houses they live in, where they work, the taxis they drive, they speak their language. There's no overly trying to get them to speak English and all that. Is that intentional for you? Is that one of your pillars of trying to keep the city, they will let the city speak its language and hold on to its character? Or what exactly are you trying to achieve with that?
I like to cite that I studied theater arts and I majored in film directing. So I see that for drama, because even life itself is drama, for drama, every context matters. And now, what I try to do with the stories from Ibadan is that I do not assume for the audience that want to consume the content. And that is why I'm always against memes in my video. Even when brands want to work with you and they say, oh, please help us to put meme, let people laugh. I say, no, who told you that the audience that want to work? I do not assume that this is where the story is going to strike their emotion. Look at that real. What became the viral moment for us in the video? At the point where thoughts coming out, and all of that. I need people to see what matters. If, like this, my guy that is sitting in front now, if he has a after we are done, and I ask my assistant, please help me to film the
because since you're someone that is into photography and filmmaking and documentary, how are you able to fuse this part of your work with
He's still around, so if you still have questions, you can catch him afterwards.
October and 1 ash.
I'm a big fan of your work, and one of the things that I like about your Adam's work is when he interviews people, they talk like they've been friends. There's a way he puts people. How do you make sure people are comfortable, like sharing these details about their life with you?
Thank you.
the first question. Praise that one. He said, how have I been able to make sure that people relate with this work and also infusing my academic background into the work? So, from day one, I picked Ibadan as my own muse. And I was even intentional by thinking, by focusing on Yoruba language as my medium to drive the story. And now, many times people say, why do you prefer the audience speaking Yoruba language? I'm sorry, the people in the story. Why do you prefer that they speak Yoruba language? And when I evaluate the different languages and the narration of the story and how audience connect to it, I see that people are more closer to the indigenous language. They understand the context better. There is a way you say something in Yoruba, it's very funny. You try to explain that same joke in English now. Everybody will just say, crickets. Yeah, crickets. So waiting come funny for you now. So, okay, now, if I say, lálẹ́ ọjọ́ yẹn, àárín tákìtì. You know, you already know that, oh, we laughed and it was very funny. And now I say, that night, we laughed and so said, you people say, bad. Are we okay? So it is the fact that I understand the community, number one. And I also feel like over time, because I've done different works, I understood what makes them tick, and I focus on it.
So that's what I do. And because of my academic background in theater, it just makes me repurpose the story very well. One of the big platforms that inspire me, that I like very much, is BBC. And it is even BBC Yoruba. They helped my own storytelling journey. And when my mentees come around, I always tell them that when you are arranging your story, I don't want that story to start with my name is anything. Start from the conflict. That's what BBC Yoruba will do. BBC Yoruba will start from the conflict. They will now do an intervention. They will now come back to my name is. You will now go and find that conflict in the middle. Yes, because of their, I think that one of the things that causes this thing is because of their attention span sometimes. Yes. If you are unable to convince someone when they open your story within first to 10 seconds, they will skip to the middle. If you are still unable to convince them in the middle, they are skipping to the end. If you are able to convince them in the end, they will go back to the middle to go and look for what they miss. They will now go back to the beginning. But to start a story these days, you have to go and start from the wala. Yes. So it is because now I understand the environment and I understand how the story structure should go. That's why people have stayed so long with the stories, and that's why we have remained friends. For the second question, how do I get people to tell me everything? I actually become their friend. The thing is that when I am going out, I can trek from here and trek to Bodi Jojo looking for people. Because you see some of the people that you've seen in those videos, some of them, it is where we see them on the spot and start talking to them. We don't prep them. We don't tell them we are coming. But there is a way I would be walking and I will be looking at you. When I say, everyone say, Papa, this is a very good response. We want to ask you, sir, please, how do we get to Bodija from here? And you know, it depends on the response that it gives back. That will make it depends on the response that it gives back, that it gives to me. That will make me decide whether I want to continue. Even when you are doing some of the interview, the person that can tell them this interview no tap. This interview no tap. We not go use them. Or when someone actually call you and say they want to tell you their story, it is you who tell them and say we will come back for a second time. The way you narrated your story, it is not going to touch anybody's heart. We will do it again. We will do it at the time when you are in your back, when your emotion is full. We need it to burst. That's when we will do it. Should we switch off the camera for her? No, don't switch it off. If she wants to try, let her cry there. We need all the tears that we can get in this video. Even if you watch my most recent video, there was a place where one guy was trying to disrupt the whole interview. And I told, it was me that edited the video. I said I was going to keep that part in the video because I knew that people were going to talk about that part. And people actually talked about it. So I make friends with people that I interview. We spend a lot of time to get the best part out of them. You know, because at first, maybe you don't know me. And then I say, what's your name? My name is this. So can you tell me one of the times that you were so broke and you didn't have I don't have any time that I've been broke. Okay, do you remember the time when you were in school and your mother sent you 2,000 naira and you were unable to afford just a cup of garri? I remember, tell me about it. So immediately you push them into the stories like this, they will not know. Then we just say, even I forgot to tell you, they are telling me now. Don't worry, don't go yet. I know someone in this hostel that has a better story than my own. Let's go and So when you do one, the friend that you just made will now start helping you to hunt for stories. For you to get the best part of human beings when you do these things, you need to really be patient. You are the one looking for something. So you have to be patient. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please a round of applause for Ayo Adams. Keep it as organic as possible. And please, a round of applause for everybody. that was on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very beautiful session. So, all right, photograph, right? Yeah. All right, so we just have to run quickly now because we also have our guests. Most of our guests are from outside Ibadan and they need to also catch a train. So next, the next panel session is titled "The Case for Genre Fiction in the Nigerian Literary Space." I'm really looking out for what is going to come out of this panel session. And let me start with introducing the moderator. Please, with the round of applause, let's make welcome Santi Femi. He's a blogger at Ibadan. Ibadan Lawa. Awat Ibadan, sorry, Awat Ibadan. I keep on mixing it up. Awat Ibadan. Please, a round of applause for him again. And so to introduce our panelists, please let's celebrate and, with a round of applause, and let's welcome Olabisi Ajakaye up on the stage. Olabisi Ajakaye is passionate about writing and exploring. He obtained his first, second, and third degree in urban and regional planning. He works and lives with his family in Lagos, Nigeria. He's also the author of this fantastic legal thriller, If My Country Had a Jury. I've read the book. It's a very fantastic book. Trust me, you'll love it. If My Country Had a Jury. And to introduce the second panelist is, and of course, please let's celebrate as we make welcome Aki Gogo up on stage. So Aki Gogo is the critically acclaimed author of dark, twisty thrillers, including Prisoner of Fate, Waste of Sin, and Blood in the Water. A Nigeria-based author, his subgenre and his lure in narration is one that keeps his readers guessing until the last page. He runs a personal blog which is a microcosm of the stories he shares in his books and basically and everything else. When he's not writing on his favorite sport besides shooting sounds of rushing pool water, Aki spends most of his time as a career and performance coach, public speaker, and trainer. He's a successful civil engineer with widespread experience in the downstream oil and gas sector and renewable energy space in Nigeria. Please let's celebrate Aki Gogo once again.
Good afternoon, everybody. All right, so this is the panel session that's supposed to involve the audience. You have been listening, and then you're supposed to be a part of something. And this is the panel. So I'll lay a little backstory for the audience and also for the panelists. And this is the story. So originally, the panel was centered around thrillers. We wanted to look at thrillers and explore them, right? And then we later changed it to literary genre and the debate. But here's the thing. How many of us have read Things Fall Apart? Please, just wave. Wow, we have a lot of literary people here. All right. So, how many of us have read give me a popular fiction, please. Popular hibiscus. Now, there's a debate around whether popular hibiscus is genre or literary. And it is rated literary for the most part, right? So when we talk about genre, and that's why I said this involves you now. So we're talking about Sidney Sheldon, we're talking about the James Patterson, we're talking about all the Enid Blytons that you read, all the Fantastic Four, Adventurous Seven. Those are, sorry, I know you're pissed off with me, but then this is also, like I said, for them, I want them involved. You will get me in the frame later. So that is your genre fiction, basically. Now, I fell in love with reading from genre fiction, not literary fiction. I started reading genre, right? James Hadley Chase, thrillers, and all of that. But now the conversation that we get in popular spaces is literary. James Hadley Chase, Chimamanda, you get Chino Achebe, Wole Soyinka, and sometimes it feels like if you are not reading heavy stuff, you are not a serious person. It looks like if you have not bought the latest book that won the Booker Prize or the Nobel Prize, you are not a serious person. This panel today is talking about what you may call the unserious books. And I am here to ask them questions and to engage you regarding quote and unquote the unserious books with a specific focus on thrillers. Now, here we go. Mr. Akin, I read your collection of short stories, which is stories from yesterday.
Dreams from yesterday.
Dreams from yesterday. And the first story shocked me. I don't know if I can give spoilers.
Is it fine to apologize for shocking you?
No, do not apologize, because you have to apologize like 5-6 times, because almost like 6 stories or thereabouts shocked me again and again. So in the first story, there is an accident. And so in your head, you believe this man made it. Because he gets out, he has bruises and all of that, but then he seems to be fine because he can see other bodies around. And then you think he is fine. And then he walks into the hospital to say, let me go see my child that is in the hospital and maybe I will get myself treated. And then he walks in and then nobody can see him because his wife is there crying because they have told her that he is dead. And it is in the end that you realize that the whole time he was dead. What was going through your mind at the time?
As a writer or the reader?
As the writer.
Oh, well, I think I have, basically for most of my stories, the intent is to not allow the readers understand or guess where we're going. And so it feels like you lead them down the path and then you spring up on them with a twist somewhere down the road. But there was also an underlying message, which is about what happens when we die, right? I mean, how do you think if someone's life is taken all of a sudden, how do they reconcile, you know? In this case, in that particular story, the guy was trying to go see his wife and his daughter, who were hospitalized, and he was trying to make up for the fight he also had with his wife. And then along the line, he got involved in an explosion, and of course, he died. It was a reflection of what was happening in the north at the time in Kaduna. And of course, he got up thinking he had survived. He saw everybody dead, and he walked into the hospital hoping to at least go see his wife with all the groceries and stuff he managed to buy. And then he realized he had died. And then at that point, he's confused. Where do I go? What's the next thing for me? You know, so it's a deeper question around death and how people transcend, how people's lives are disrupted basically by such acts that is not planned. You know, I mean, imagine if you knew you were going to die, at least you can at least plan a few things before it happens. But it's taken away from you brutally, and then the sad reality is what happens afterwards.
All right, fantastic. So then that leads me to the next question for you, a quick one. Do you consider yourself to be a literary writer or a genre writer?
Well, it's I think I want to delve to the genre writer more like, because and that's because first, I studied civil engineering in the university, and everything else I've done is contrary to everything I'm doing currently. It's maths, basically. I haven't done any particular skill set that has to do with writing in that sense. But I have a knack for reading when I was much younger, and I realized I could observe what was happening. I could be in a room and tell you everything that's happening in that room by just looking through in a few seconds. And because of that, I can also document and write them in a certain type of way, with the intent to crystallize that scene as vividly as possible for the reader to get it, to get a sense of it. And in that very brief moment when you get to read it, you get the message right there and there. So I see my writing more as a genre sort of fiction.
All right, thank you very much. Now, Mr. Olabisi Ajakai. So your book, If My Country Had a Dream, you decided to take us on a legal journey, and then you set us in 2050. Something has happened in 2050. There is a crime, and the judicial system itself is almost on trial of some sort, and you did not study law. So how did a non-law person, or how do I say this, a non-lawyer person wake up one morning and decide to write a legal thriller from the commission of the crime to what was going through your mind when you thought about that?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. Thank you for this session. Shout out to my publisher, shout out to my friends, shout out to my editor. How do I answer this question? Each time I answer the question, I don't give the same answer because the answer evolves. So
what kind of evolution is that?
So let me give you the most recent one. I grew up reading a lot. In fact, my dad had a shelf back in the house. You find a lot of Sidney Sheldon, John Grisham, some Arthur Haley, and a lot of them. So I read these books, and at some point I had to ask myself, what if some of these legal issues happen in Nigeria? How would we solve them? What if we had a jury in Nigeria? Would it work? Would we get justice? A lot of times, after we hear these cases, these high-profile cases, and how it ended, and the verdict, we're often distraught, especially that of the Imo State gubernatorial thing that fourth became first. And you have to ask yourself, if the people were to judge, would it be any better? That was what bothered me, and I did a lot of research, and I realized that I think we are still operating the best system, leaving judgment in the hands of the judge instead of the people. Because if you give people the opportunity to judge, certain things will be dictated, such as sentiment, like you rightly said, religion, tribe, maybe ethnic. So now back to the question of I'm not legal, but I have no legal background. Contrary is what I studied, what I know, but I was able to write on legal. I think it's the influence of those authors. They shaped my thinking, they shaped my reality, they shaped my virtual environment. I was living in an environment where I was not entirely part of it. I chose to isolate and shut myself out. So I was able to build on something that I created virtually. That was what I was able to achieve that. I hope the question, answer is okay.
If your answer is okay, we'll take that. We'll take that. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Akin, I was thinking to myself as I was reading your collection of short stories. By the time I got to the third, fourth story, I was thinking to myself, so far, you have written 3, 4 books, 5 books, right? And they're all thrillers, back to back to back to back. What has the reception been like?
Thank you for the question. So I think I've had, for the 5 books, I've had 5 separate book reading sessions. For every book I publish, I try to have at least 1 or 2 book reading sessions. I haven't done for one of the books though. And most of the guys who come in there, most of those who read the books, we have this intimate fireside sort of session where we talk through the stories. And one thing that stands out from the interaction with them is the fact that they can relate with the stories. There are stories where some of them literally own the stories and interpret them in ways that even I, who wrote the books or the stories themselves, couldn't possibly have thought that they would have gone that deep. You know, when you're writing a story about a young lady who is sexually abused, and they can relate to it in that sense, it may come with a twist in the end. But the idea is this is happening and no one is talking about it. So it's the kind of stories where people don't want to talk about it. I'll just give you an example. It's a call for. There was a certain international organization that approached me at some certain time, and they wanted me to be the host of the guest of a book reading session for a particular festival. And apparently they hadn't read the book. They just said, "Oh, we'd love to have you bring any of your books. Let's read it." And then they read it, and then they frowned at it and said, "No, some of the things you're saying here doesn't quite resonate with us as an organization." And I said, "Okay, that's fine." Why? Because they are our stories, and our stories need to be told. It cannot be told the way that you want it to be told, right? Because there are stories, there are things that are deep happening to us that are not being recognized. And so putting the book allows us to give a voice, lend a voice to those issues. So for every time anyone reads these books, what they end up saying is, I can relate.
because this has happened to someone I know, or it happened to someone before, and I love the way this story panned out.
All right, fantastic. Thank you for that. But then I wanted to follow up on that, then go back a bit. You mentioned that you loved reading while growing up. Did you ever find yourself in a pickle having to choose between the literary books and the genre books?
Well, yeah, at the time, I really didn't care for what I read.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Especially in secondary school, I think that's where I did a lot of reading. So I bought books from Pacesetters, I read Eric Blyton books, all books. I just had a ravenous appetite for reading.
Did you read Wole Soyinka?
Yes, I did. In fact, I read, you can't, I schooled in Mayflower, you can't be in a school where they are grounded in all of these literary things and you wouldn't read those books. And I did read them. I struggled, sometimes with some of the words in there.
Thank you. I guess that was what I wanted to bring out, and to say that a lot of people struggle with literary stuff. And I wanted to just hear that bit of it to say, yes, there's stuff that you can pick up and read and enjoy, and you just go, you flow with it. I can give you one person, 2 books, and one I enjoyed it thoroughly is Zadie Smith, White Teeth. I enjoyed it thoroughly. It was smooth, it was nice, and then it prompted me to get on Beauty. And I read on Beauty and I couldn't finish it. It was a struggle. So, Mr. Olabisi Ajakai, did you ever find yourself having to struggle reading literary books? Reading them Wole Soyinka's, them Toni Morrison's, and co.
I'm not sure you like my answer.
No. I'm here for all answers. So,
I'll
good.
be honest. I'll be honest. I prefer the foreign authors to the local, to the indigenous ones. I don't want to use the phrase local. And because I could connect with them, they have this thing that the indigenous ones do not have.
What thing is that?
I would say they knew how to put humor, include humor, even in a tragedy, which is difficult.
I would submit then, since you wrote a legal thing, I will use a legal language with you. I will submit then that it is the books that you read that infused humor. There were some books that were so serious and there were no humor in them.
Yes, you're right. You're right. But one of the things that makes me to continue reading a book to the next chapter is if it makes me think and it makes me laugh. I mean, those two things are very important to me. If I'm learning something and I can laugh and I can relate with something, I think it inspires me to continue.
So how has the reception for your book been?
Oh, the reception has been beyond what I expected, because when I started writing this book, I did not start it as a prose. I started it as a script. In fact, let me give you a background. My friend is sitting here with me. We were at the cinema one day. I criticized everything on screen. The movie did not make any sense. Just the normal, nothing, empty. So she, why are you always criticizing? You need to do your own now. I said, okay, fine, I'll write the script. So I wrote the first, first three paragraphs, and I sent it to her. She was like, oh, the Nigerians are going to have movie producers to bastardize this script, change it, convert it to a novel. Wow, I've never written a novel before. I'll try. I did, and eventually it turned out so well. Now, post-publication, I found out that people who have read the book, taking time to read the book, have challenged me. And they have seen things that I did not see. That's why they also. They brought out things that I did not know. Things that were hidden. And I was impressed. I would say that, people can look at something and see different things.
Yeah.
So that has happened, and it has been encouraging.
All right, fantastic. So you can begin to prepare your questions now, if you had any for our guests. Mr. King, I wanted to ask you a question about a particular story. I think it was the second or the third one. I can't remember now. And if I was going to write that story, same plot, right? Same thematic preoccupation and all of that, it would probably have been a bit heavy and dense, because I tend to tilt more to the literary side than the genre side, right? And so the story is simple, and I could summarize it in one sentence. you run into everything you are running away from. And so you're wondering what story that is. All right, I'll help you out. So your story starts with a girl who is a house help, and she's always dreamt that if she was going to have a boyfriend, it would be some posh guy that would take care of her, not the smelly gate man, not the everything and all of that. And so she packages herself whenever she's going to run an errand, looking for the kind of man that she wanted, right? Like, I will never date a gate man, God forbid. And so she begins to do all of these things. And then she goes to the supermarket one day. I'm sorry I'm spoiling it, but then that's how they can get it. You need to get that book, by the way. All the stories are crazy. Crazy stories. So this girl goes to the supermarket, gets to the till, meets this man, well-dressed, and all that. Man gives her a card. Let's talk. They begin to talk, long and short. Love comes into the matter. And love, before you realize what's happening, she's pregnant and goes, okay, so Madam finds out who is responsible for this. Oh, it's the man who lives at this house, this fine posh house, and all of that. And then they eventually get there. I won't tell you the twist and turns. And then it turned out that the man that put her in the family way was actually the gate man. So how do you start with, I'm not one of those girls, even though I'm a house girl, I am not one of those girls that will be sleeping around with all these smelly gate men and then end up being conned by a gate man. So why did you decide to write that? If I was going to write that story, I would write it in a very heavy way, flowery pieces that make you sit down, think again, what is this saying? But then you didn't do that. You just went straight story. There's no like nice sentences like that. It's just taking you, and it's taking you very fast. What was that deliberational? Was it?
Okay, so in response to that, I'll start by saying I run a blog. It's my name, akinbook.com. It has over 380 blog posts. I haven't posted much this year though. The stories are still there. It's the springboard from where I pick the stories eventually into the book. And because I have access to the analytics of this, my website, I noticed that the depth of scrolling for those who read the stories, if your stories go beyond 5 minutes, they probably don't go as deep as they should. And I just realized over 2 or 3 years that the behavior of those who were reading the stories was changing. They wanted to read things for 3-5 minutes, they wanted short chapters, and they need you to grab their attention from the beginning. So sometimes deliberately I'll make a story that starts very slowly, and I see that readership, they wouldn't go that deep. Now, if you're writing short stories and you intend to complete it, or at least to get to a certain point at the end of that story, it has to move very fast-paced. And one of the things you find very interesting about that particular book is each chapter is basically like 6 or 7 pages. So once you see it, you'll be like, oh, okay, I can finish this quickly. And then before you know, you're done. And then you're stunned for a minute. You think about it and say, you know what, let me go for another ride. So it's like you go through a dopamine rush. It starts very fast and it ends pretty fast. But in it, I'm trying to layer a message. Like I say, the intent is to layer a message. My first book, when I wrote it out, it was more of me expressing myself literally. I could almost say that book was a, the kind of literary fiction. Almost say that, because it was very mechanical in that sense. But what I didn't realize when I did the book reading, and the feedback I got was, oh, we wanted this sort of things, we wanted to move faster, we like the story to be like this, I like the way you write, it's very vivid, you spend a lot of time describing things. What if you do it this way, what if you do it this way? So I kind of changed a bit how I approached the next one. And then I realized that they picked up messages that I wasn't sending to them from the stories. They picked up messages all through every chapter. And I'm wondering, if I wrote this book, why am I not intentional about the message I'm trying to pass from the get-go, rather than just telling the story and showing my literary powers, right? So what I did with that particular story was, for every chapter, there is a message. And the message is encapsulated into that story. As fast-paced as it is, once you're done, you either relate to it, or you know somebody has happened to, or you appreciate the twist that comes into it.
Thank you very much. Any questions for our guests? Any questions? All right. Mr. Tokwe.
Not really a question, but just an observation concerning what you said earlier, and probably a question we want from there. So you were talking about the difference between literary writers and genre writers, and I think it still boils down to the choice of the publishers in Nigeria. We have a publisher in India, so they should take note. And it's also ironic that, I think for every country, what the predilection for learning or for reading for every country differs. So it's also ironic that the country that awards the Nobel Prize in Literature, their biggest writers, their most popular are crime writers. I'm talking about the likes of Annie Mankel and others. So you will see them discussing all these books and all these authors as if the plots in the stories are real. And of course, some of the things that is discussed in these crime books are also real, narcissism and all that. But as a genre writer for our panelists, how are they navigating the market as a genre writer in terms of I don't want to say popularity, but in terms of readership and attention that they are attracting? But as this other person has explained, he has a blog, and I think the internet is also one of the most common place where Nigerians read. So yeah. So my question basically is just their reaction to the reader's preference in the market, and how they are navigating it. And I've also worked with Mr. Ajakai in the past, and he has this what can I call it? This understanding. Okay, he wants his book to be voluminous, and so that a reader would get a value for his money, for his or her money. And as his other panelists has discussed now, due to the analytics on his blog, because I also run an online journal, I know, when it comes to certain stories, if you can't catch their attention quickly, you lose them. They will put away the story, and the internet, there's always a lot of things going on and on. So how are they navigating the market and the readership?
Is that to one person or the two of them? All right, Mr. Ajakai, you start with that.
The question is, how are we navigating the market? Now, navigating the market as a new author is quite difficult. This is my first book. And thanks to my social media manager, thanks to the publisher, it has not really been easy, but I think we've been able to sell over 800 copies.
Wow.
Which is not a funny feat at all. It has been a lot of pushing, a lot of, let me say, marketing. But I realized something. When your audience know that there's something in this book that is unique, that is not in other books, they will go for it. And they will be the ones to spread the word. And a lot of my readers have come through referrals. Yeah. I'll take the country referrals. So it has not been easy, especially for a new author. But I think with time, it gets better, it gets easier.
All right.
I think for a new author, that's pretty impressive. Like I mentioned earlier, before I published my first book, I had a blog, and the blog had a following, and I think I was doing close to about 2,000 views every month, which by any standard isn't exactly the greatest, but it was easy to pick those stories to put in the book, and they became the first level of readership with customers. And then when I started having book reading sessions, it was easier too, because they came in, different kinds of people came into the scene, and they bought a lot of books, and some people gave them out. I also have, because of the virtue of where I work in the oil and gas industry, it's easy to call on some of the leaders in some of the other organizations and have the books mailed and shipped to them so they can give to the employees. And then I just simply go down to the offices and then have a book session signing with them. So in that sense, it's been largely commercially successful in that sense, because it was deliberate. The only thing I just did with the other thing I did with the books was just keep them in some specific bookstores. And I did that because I wanted there to still be visibility. So if you need to find where the books are, you can read them there. You can read them on my blog, it's on Amazon, so you can access the book from any of those different platforms or channels, as the case may be. But largely, I'm fine with what we've done. You start out by writing a book because you want to pass a message, you want to get out there. You're just fine getting the book out there. I tell people,
that I may not know you so well, but there's a good chance if you get my book, it's probably going to sit on your bedside table or right between your pillowcase, where I'll probably never get to. And that in itself is fine for me. Thank you.
All right. Any other question? All right, please.
Okay, thank you so much for the session so far. My question is going to be very simple, but I also need to put a little bit of context. For me, I believe that there's a particular age group that reads a lot of genre writing, like the children and maybe young adults. Of course, it will not be local authors most of the time, it will be people like Dan Brown and the rest. So, but my question now has to do with how does, like me, who came into reading much later in life, like more like an adult or late teen. So who reads because I believe a book is supposed to inspire me one way or the other. The characters are people who are probably going through the same situation as myself, or maybe going through situations that I need to relate with, to be able to navigate my society. So basically my question has to do with, as an adult, how can you like encourage me to try and pick up genre too, like fantasy, magical realism, because maybe there's a way it can impact my life. Now, secondly, it has to do with literary prices. I'm aware of NNG prices for literature in Nigeria, for example, and I've looked through the categories available: prose fiction, children's literature, I think drama and poetry. So I wanted to ask if genre is also part of that prose fiction, because I've been following it over the years, especially that prose fiction category, and I know that the people that have been awarded so far are people in the literary section. People in the literary section. Thank you very much.
Those are two fantastic questions, particularly the second one. So, Mr. Akin, do you want to build the cut?
The first one was about encouraging adults to read, right? I don't think it's ever too late to read. One thing I found out is if you reading is something that allows your brain to actually work. Not the act of reading, but the act of imagining what you're reading, because you need to pick the words and translate them into pictures. I remember the first time I got a dose of that disconnect was when I read a book, I think it was Cain and Abel.
Jeffrey Archer.
Was it Jeffrey Archer? Yes, it was. And then the movie came out, and I read it when I was pretty much very young, and I got a chance to watch the movie, and I just was upset because I figured out that they were skipping loads of pages. I was just wondering, when he was thinking about this, I felt they could describe it a little better. So there's always a disconnect. But if you read the book, you find out that your imagination is somewhat very different from what you get if you had to watch the movie, because that depends on a lot of things, the budget, and all of that. So reading is not something that is restricted to any party. And what I found is, if you're going to start, you start small. Read a few chapters, read a few verses. I tell people, nobody picks up the Bible or the Quran to finish in one day. We always pick it up, read a few verses, and then we pray and meditate. Why can't we do the same thing to books? Pick up the book, do 2 chapters, put it down, come back to it, and then treat it over. Let your mood determine how far you go, but do not hesitate how you let your imagination blossom. I tell people nobody can restrict how well you want to imagine. Pick up a line and imagine as far as you want. It stays in your head. No one else has the right to question or judge what you imagine. So as a young person, whether you're 50, you're 60, pick up a book and read. Just take it one step at a time. You'll find out that you pick up pace as you go.
All right. Mr. Olabisi Ajakai, I want you to address the second question, which has to do with the NLNG prize and prizes generally in Nigeria, Africa for the most part, and all the winners are always the literary writers. Have you ever considered, or did you consider applying or putting in If My Country Had a Jury? This is the book. You can see it's not very voluminous. It's just how many pages? Just 379 pages. Just. And so this is a volume, as it were. Did you consider putting it in for the NLNG? Did you give us a little bit of gist? Did you put it in for the NLNG?
Thank you for that. Okay. Let me start this way. I'm not a fan of prizes, competition, and things like that because I feel if you start with that motive, you might not go far. Because the truth is, there's some elements of luck when it comes to winning prizes also. I think every writer should concentrate on what he has to offer. If the prize comes, fine. If it doesn't, continue. That's my answer to that. And yes, I put in through my publisher called me, yes, put in. I don't think I asked him if he submitted. I'm not sure. Because I did not have that time. I don't even know if it has been awarded. I don't know. I don't write for awards. I write to put something out there. So let me also answer the first question. How is it easy to, or how do you encourage other people to read? Now, I might be in the wrong position to answer this question because just like Aki, I also attended Mayflower, and while I was in Mayflower, Saisho Larry had this thing of we called it extensive reading, where you're going to read a book, you learn a new word, you write it. So reading has been part of me since I was young, from cradle. So it's difficult for me to answer that question. However, I would say that it is possible, but it's also difficult. It's difficult because we have a lot of our phones, our gadgets these days. They take a lot of our screen time. You go on TikTok, you want to spend 15 minutes, 2 hours, you are still on TikTok. However, you have to apply that discipline. You need to be disciplined. And you need to know that when I'm reading, I want to learn. And I want to be entertained. So if you go into, if you pick up a book with that intention of, I want to read and I want to be entertained, I think it will help you. It will give you that push. I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Thank you so much. So these are the two books. The Dreams from Yesterday, the blue one is by Akin Akimbogun, and If My Country Had a Jury, Olabisi Ajakaye. And even though I'm a moderator, if I could answer the second person who asked the question about reading, if you've always read literary stuff and you're thinking, let me try genre, right? Like Mr. Ajakaye said, you just need to start. Whatever would motivate you. Allow me to put it that way. Sometimes it's always something. Maybe the way somebody writes their sentences, maybe it's the way they paint a picture. For example, let me use myself, please. Allow me to use myself. So I picked Sidney Sheldon for the first time. I was already in my late teens when I picked up Sidney Sheldon. And then I started reading, and for me, there was not too much time for description and all of those things. And so you're saying, oh, the orange amber of the afternoon, evening sky now swallowed up. There's no time, right? So moving you very quickly, and I loved it. And as I was going along, I realized that, okay, every sentence mattered. Nothing was going to waste. So I realized that if I skipped something, at some point I would have to go back. Unlike Jeffrey Archer, that you could still flip a few pages and then you understand what I mean. So I picked up Cain and Abel in SS1, SS2. I tried to read it. I was like, okay, it's good stuff, but nah. Because I grew up with the let's read serious things. That was my mindset, even as a child. So I read Enid Blytons for a while. I read the Pace Setters for a while. Eze Goes to School then. But then there was a part where we were now like, oh, I am now 11 years old. This is the part where we start reading serious stuff. By 13, I was like, I want to read Plato's Republic at 13. That's the level that I was operating at. And then suddenly, I have this book in front of me, and it's just going, and it's just going. And my brother, that was what motivated me to keep on reading. Then I went to John Grisham. Right? I overheard a conversation around John Grisham, and I had always wanted to study law. And so they were like, oh, legal thriller. And I'm like, which one is legal thriller? We just read like Antilles of the Savannah, we read all these Demand Died. And so you're talking legal thriller. And so somebody said, oh, you should read the Pelican Brief. And so I got the Pelican Brief and I read it, and I was like, oh my God, because it took real life, which is law, which is all of these things, and then it fictionalized it, but it was not a literary kind of thing. It was quick. So my interest in law, I hope you get what I'm saying now. My interest in law made me go to look for the Pelican Brief. And then I went to look for the partner. And then I went to look for the jury. And then I went to look for the runaway juror or something like that. And then, in fact, I got one recently, not recently, 2020, Camino Island, which interestingly is about a manuscript of Scott Fitzgerald or something that was stolen. And then it went on and on and on. So if you're a literary person, you would love Camino Island, which is a genre fiction. So that can motivate you because it is talking about the manuscript of a literary fiction that was stolen from the archives. And then it takes you on this winding journey, agent to the thief, and how everything weaves together. So when you start, you find what motivates you, and you keep going back to it. The ones that work, you take them. The ones that don't work, you drop them. Thank you very much for your time, for your attention. Once again, I want to thank our guest, Mr. Akin. Mr. Akin, I'm meeting you for the first time, and I'm so happy to meet you. I met your books first, and then I'm meeting you. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you.
And all of that.
A lot of people read my book first before they meet me, which is one of the reasons why I came with 2 copies, and I'm hoping to give to anyone in the audience that you find suitable to give copies of the book. They stayed this late just so that they could be a part of this, and it'd be nice to give something back. Thank you.
Let's put a round of applause for him first of all for that generosity. Now the problem is, how do I pick 2 people? I pass that duty back to you.
So I'm gonna say you ask them a question, right, that you feel would make them earn the book, so they feel they earn it rather than being gifted.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Mr. Ajakaye, thank you so much for being here. We have met before, and we had 1 or 2 conversations on the side, and it's nice to see you again. Thank you very much for gracing our event with your presence. So how do I pick the 2 people? Question. Mr. Sebio, where are you? He's outside. Oh my God, who's going to help me out here? Okay, so we're good.
Mr. Santi, just before you wrap up, someone just donated 10 of Mr. Akinboku's book. 10 more questions. 10 more.
Make it 12.
Yes. So just go to the. Okay. So.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out how to pick 12 people. No, we're not at 12 yet. Okay, we'll come back to that. Let's have the next panel because of... Yes, please. Thank you very much.
Please, a round of applause for Mr. Santi Femi. Thank you very much. And it's been an amazing journey so far. And so I also want to, I just thought that we need to celebrate everyone that has been here since morning. Please, if you've been here since morning, raise up your hand. Please celebrate them, celebrate yourselves, please. Come on. It just told me that, wow, amazing. We've had people come and go. I saw some people came in the morning, they went, they came back again. Thank you very much. We just have 1 more panel session to go. And also, do we have any, do we have any spoken word artists in the house? Okay, we have 1 spoken word artist in the house. Do we have any poetry performer? Anyone who would like to dazzle us with something? We just thought to, like, after the whole event, we just have people just come and do their thing. So I have, please, I just want to note them down so that after the last panel session, we just come in one after the other and then we call it a day. So please tell me welcome to them. We have, please, someone should be attend to us. So we have 1, 2, how about now? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Please again. Please, if you have anyone noting them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And okay, yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Please help me note them. Yeah, thank you very much. So before we go on to, pardon me, before we go on to the next panel session, please, I'd like you to bring out your phone. Let's do something very quickly. We should have done this in the morning, but these things just happen. Please bring out your phone. I need you to take a selfie, right? Do a selfie with anyone around here. Just do a selfie, find selfie. Where's my phone is not with me, I've done a selfie myself. Let's do a selfie together. Do it to someone. Yes, tell them that you were live at Ibadan Book and Art Festival. Hashtag Ibadan Festival. Hashtag IbaFest 2025. Let's do that quickly. Yes, please. I'm loving the energy right now. Amazing. A very fine selfie. Yes. With the caption, live at Ibadan Book and Art Festival. Hashtag Ibadan Festival. Hashtag IbaFest 2025. So, which means that you will have to follow us also on Instagram so you can collaborate with us, tag us. If you collaborate with us, we'll gladly accept your collaboration. So on all social media handles is at Ibadan Festival. On all social media handles at Ibadan Festival. Thank you very much. I just want to please, who's doing selfie? Let me do selfie too. I also came. Who is doing selfie? Let's go. All right, let's come on. Who is doing selfie? Let's do together. Yes, please. Yes, so live at so live at Ibadan Book and Art Festival. Yeah.